Germany has changed its asylum policy and has completely stopped accepting applications for asylum from foreigners who have arrived in Germany from another EU member state. This decision mainly affects Poland, through which illegal immigrants transit to Germany. German border guards have begun to refuse entry to these migrants and to send them back to Poland, but not to Lithuania or Latvia, from where much of the illegal migration from Belarus is trafficked. Unfortunately, the Polish border guard seems unable to cope with this latest phase of the migration crisis. This video shows a German police officer making vulgar gestures towards Polish citizen border defense movement members. At the same time, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz admits that his country does not intend to stop transferring illegal immigrants to Poland. Thanks to our actions, we have prevented thousands of illegal entries and many overdue arrest warrants have been carried out. For now, we must maintain border controls to limit migration and for security reasons. Controls have also returned to the Polish borders, but their effectiveness varies. If you don't want to be stopped for inspection, I recommend buying a bus. Look, another bus, tinted windows, Ukrainian license plates, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but probably yes, and it drove straight through. It just drove through. Here we go, another bus. Now there were no tinted windows, just a total tin can. No one even looked. There are 3 groups patrolling here, checking, and no one was interested in the bus. These are just a few examples. However, such recordings may become increasingly difficult to obtain, not because the Polish government knows how to stop the wave of illegal immigration, but because they have banned filming near the border. Donald Tusk's government has designated border crossings as critical infrastructure, which is illegal to photograph, to paralyze the actions of the state as well as the actions of the Polish citizens who defend the borders. What is this all about? The point is to obscure what is happening in our country. As it turns out, the ban on recording applies not only at the border, it also applies inland, as here at the Szczecin-Gumienice railway station. A border guard vehicle is parked here and the location is subject to a ban on the use of drones. The ban on the use of unmanned aerial vehicles was introduced in connection with the regulation of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration on the temporary restoration of border control of persons crossing the state border constituting an internal border. What is the legal basis for these bans? This is the most important question of parliamentary control in the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration. However, the question remains unanswered. The government acts on the basis of and within the limits of the law. That is why I would like to know the limits of this law, because it should be posted somewhere on the Ministry's website in the first place. It must be communicated. Well, Minister, there are no signs saying no photography at these border crossings. There are no signs saying that recording is not allowed. There is nothing there at the moment. Are we done? But can you finish explaining why it is not marked in any way? Yes, as I said, we will clarify all these issues and respond to you as soon as possible. There are more unanswered questions. For example, why do similar bans on filming not apply to the border with Lithuania, where controls have also been reinstated? Just yesterday, the border guard detained a trafficker transporting 4 Somalis at the Lithuanian border. 120 attempts to illegally enter Poland via the border with Belarus were also blocked, although it is known that many illegal immigrants managed to get into Poland. We would probably never have known about the third route, immigrants transported to Poland from Germany, if it weren't for the grassroots initiative that was the establishment of the border defense movement. The border defense movement is a group that was created to stop what seemed inevitable, what led Western countries to complete destabilization, internal collapse and the downfall of public security. So our goal is to stop mass immigration, to stop the EU Migration Pact, and we will do it. Yesterday, authorities tried to remove volunteers from the border defense movement from the border crossing in Słubice. The citizen patrollers remained in place despite being ordered to move 500 meters away. I'm saying, where am I supposed to go? To the end of the city? I'm saying I'm not going. No? Then the police will come and take you away. I'm saying go ahead. I have the right to stand here. Sometimes I think to myself, what kind of country has Poland become? Today, the border defense movement returned to its place. We are not giving up. We are here. We are watching. That's it. Best regards. We are taking action. Many suspect it was the border defense movement that forced Donald Tusk's government to restore controls on the border with Germany. The Polish government, although it claims that it had been planning to introduce border controls for several months, was forced into a corner by Robert Bankiewicz's border defense movement. One of the movement's demands was the restoration of controls on the border with Germany. The movement, which has been operating on the border since April this year, revealed cases where German services push migrants across the border and the Polish state does not react. However, the results of these controls leave much to be desired. On the section with Lithuania, only one man, an Algerian citizen, was refused entry. At the border crossing points with Germany, only one foreigner without a passport was ordered to return to Germany. A border guard officer quoted by the news agency Rzeczpospolita warns all Poles, "This is a silent Polish-German war on the border. We cannot be responsible for our neighbours' porous borders just because it is convenient for Germany." Official data shows that approximately 40% of foreigners sent back to Poland by Germany in the last 6 months are Ukrainians, but as many as 60% are citizens of Afghanistan, Somalia, Syria, Georgia and Colombia. Łomża. This is not Berlin or Marseille. This is Podlaskie Voivodeship, Poland. Today, Tusk's government is losing control of the border and the safety of its citizens. Instead of protecting them, it is letting in illegal migrants. Podlaskie says, "Enough." Now you know why Tusk invalidated the immigration referendum in 2023. Today we can all see where this is leading. You are allowing Germany's migrant problem to be shifted onto Poland while you bury your heads in the sand. This is not just Germany's fault. It is the fault of the Polish government's inaction. In the first half of 2025, Germany tried to transfer over 20,000 migrants to other European Union countries. Italy and Austria completely refused to accept them despite thousands of requests from Germany. Greece accepted only 20 people. Meanwhile, Poland accepts almost all migrants turned back by Germany. From the beginning of 2024 to April 2025, over 18,000 illegal migrants were identified at the border. Other countries obviously have different governments, and the Czech, Swiss or Austrian governments, for example, would not allow this. The situation in Poland is different. We have Tusk's coalition government, and this government does not represent the interests of the Polish state in the way the Polish people would wish. Statistics show that mass immigration has always means an increase in violent crime, including sexual assaults. Although immigrants are a minority demographic in Europe, they perpetrate vastly outsized proportions of violent crime. The security of Western European nations has already been lost to some extent, yet there are still no effective deportation systems in place, and political correctness prevails. We cannot allow the same thing to happen to Poland. One of the members of the Polish Parliament's team on illegal migration, Adam Gwiazda, who documents crimes committed by illegal immigrants in Europe on his online profile on X, warned, however, that his observations show that it is not the increase in crime that is the most dangerous consequence of migration, but its sheer scale. European countries, so far not Poland, but that is changing, are seeing such an influx of immigrants from the third world that immigration is actually turning into colonization. Hence the ideas of some politicians in Greece and Spain who now want to solve the problem of mass immigration with mass deportations. The Law and Justice Party in Poland has also announced the creation of a ministry that would deal with deportations from Poland should they regain power. It is one of the most demanding but also trusted professions in the giant bureaucratic machine of the European institutions.
Words, it's not the language.
An interpreter, a person whose voice reaches the ears of politicians and top-level officials directly.
Amusingly, somebody came into the booth the other day.
What the media show during meetings such as this European Council meeting is only a fraction of the discussions taking place behind closed doors. Sometimes meetings are additionally classified as secret, when important issues need to be discussed on the agenda that do not necessarily need to be heard by the world.
Very much high on the agenda is to make sure that the president, his team, Ukraine are in the best possible position one day when they decide so to start the peace talks. And that means that we have to do everything now to make sure that when it comes to air defense, when it comes to other weapon systems.
In the case of meetings with representatives of Ukraine and NATO, the details of such talks are extremely sensitive. Therefore, it can be said with certainty that what happened during the secret European Council summit in Brussels last December is nothing short of scandalous. A French daily newspaper revealed what happened during Volodymyr Zelensky's meeting with European Union leaders on cooperation with the United States a month before Donald Trump was sworn in as president. During the European Council meeting on December the 19th, in the presence of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, an interpreter was caught by Czech translators taking notes, which is strictly prohibited during confidential meetings. The woman was meticulously writing down what the participants of the closed meeting were saying in her booth. Her notes were confiscated, and she lost access to EU institution buildings. According to French media, the interpreter had dual French-Ukrainian citizenship but was originally from Russia. She worked not only for the European Council but also for NATO and French government institutions.
Oficerów wywiadu.
Unfortunately, any strategic information during wartime can cost the lives of intelligence officers and soldiers on the front line, so it is very dangerous. And I generally believe that, unfortunately, in Western countries, there is a great deal of nonchalance in hiring interpreters for strategic meetings. In my opinion, these should be people vetted by the secret services, perhaps even secret service officers who know languages, rather than friends of politicians who are hired and whose identities are unknown. Given the importance of such meetings and the topics discussed there concerning armaments, military and political cooperation, such a potential Russian mole is a significant blow to the credibility of the Council itself. The interpreter denies any connection with the Kremlin and claims it was a misunderstanding. An investigation into her case is continuing. Interestingly, the French intelligence services learned about the whole case 6 months after the fact, just before the article was published, when journalists sent questions about the steps taken by the Élysée Palace.
These are the longest-lasting and largest military exercises in Taiwan's history. They began today and will last for 10 days. The scenario is defense against an attack against the island by the People's Republic of China. The more we practice in peacetime, the stronger Taiwan's army will be when the time comes. And an army ready for battle is a greater guarantee of security for the people. A secure Taiwan is a guarantee of peace and stability in the region. The island's civilian residents are also actively participating in the exercises. Life goes on as normal, but the fact that Taiwanese military exercises, the Han-Guang exercises, are currently taking place, in which civilians also participate, reminds Taiwanese people that the threat from China is very real. The Taiwanese assume that an attack by Beijing would be a full-scale invasion, similar to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We are transporting equipment to the most strategic locations in order to optimally repel a possible enemy attack. We have a plan of action. My orders are being implemented. No one here is underestimating the threat, especially since a few days ago, the Chinese sent their aircraft carrier to the region, accompanied by 2 destroyers and a missile frigate. It was a show of force, and a preview of events that may soon unfold in Taiwan. Another major armed conflict is about to break out in Asia between China, Taiwan, and the countries that support Taiwan, primarily the USA, and possibly Japan and South Korea. We know very well what happened in February 2022, when the Russians attacked Ukraine, and what we can observe with certainty is that, since 2022, we have seen a constant increase in tension in the Far East, between the ever-expanding military power of China and Taiwan. British intelligence warns that a Chinese attack on Taiwan is possible, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, in an interview with the American New York Times, spoke directly about the deal between Beijing and Moscow. There's an increasing realization, and let's not be naive about this. If Xi Jinping were to attack Taiwan, he would first make sure that he makes a call to his very junior partner in all of this, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, residing in Moscow, and telling him, hey, I'm going to do this, and I need you to keep them busy in Europe by attacking NATO territory. That is most likely the way this will progress. So, there are 2 potential threats on the horizon. The imperial ambitions of Russia, which may reach NATO territory, and China's desire to dominate the Asia-Pacific region. Ominous announcements are already flowing from Beijing. The military exercises in Taiwan are nothing more than a bluff and an attempt to appropriate the island. These actions lead to a dead end. Whatever they do, they will not stop their unification plan. Taiwan is not only a strategically located island opening the way for China to the Pacific Ocean, it is also the world's capital of semiconductor production, used today in virtually all electronic devices, computers, smartphones, but also in the military. It is therefore a struggle for big money influence, and dominance in the region. For decades, the Chinese have considered Taiwan to be their rebellious, wayward province, which should be annexed into the rest of the country. But, on the other hand, the annexation of Taiwan by China would open the gates to the Pacific Ocean wide for the Chinese fleet, which is something that the Americans, for example, do not want.
In the Oval Office,
And it is precisely in the USA that the people of Taiwan see their greatest hope. President Donald Trump's administration does not want to allow Chinese expansion. From the current Trump administration, including Pete Hegseth, we often hear that the United States is ready to fully provide credible, as Hegseth put it, deterrence measures for Taiwan against China. But the USA is active on many fronts. Efforts to bring peace to Ukraine are continuing. In the Middle East, there is a fragile truce between Israel and Iran. Fragile because Yemeni Houthi terrorists supporting Tehran sank a Liberian-flagged bulk carrier in the Red Sea. 4 crew members were killed. The fate of 11 remains unknown, and 10 were rescued.
As a maritime threat actor, right, they never stopped attacking Israel. So despite all this talk about a ceasefire with the US, the attacks on Israel continued. But indeed, we haven't seen any real attacks on merchant shipping since December last year. And they're back with a bang.
Russian imperialism, Islamic terrorism, and Chinese domination are threats that Donald Trump and his American allies are facing today in various parts of the world.
It's hard to believe that during his 2-week stay on the International Space Station, our Polish astronauts saw this view 226 times. The ISS, a space laboratory located 400 kilometers above the Earth, orbits the Earth 16 times a day and provides astronauts with unique opportunities to conduct experiments. One of the most important events, at least for me, during my time on the International Space Station was the opportunity to demonstrate the first brain-machine interface in space, where direct measurements from our brains controlled certain actions on a computer, which happened for the first time in space. And this is just one of many studies. Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski, as a representative of the European Space Agency, had 13 projects planned in the fields of biotechnology, health, and engineering. The experiments conducted by the Polish astronaut on the International Space Station are very important for Polish science, but some of them are also important for global science, especially the medical experiments related to the health of astronauts. We will have to wait a while longer for the results of space research, but the effects of popularizing science and space exploration are already visible. This was particularly evident during the Polish astronauts' video meeting with young people and children. What everyday activity is the biggest challenge for you on the International Space Station? I think the biggest challenge is moving around. It's a lot of fun, but it's also easy to bruise yourself somewhere.
2, 1.
The Axiom 4 mission, involving our compatriot as well as an American, an Indian, and a Hungarian, launched from Cape Canaveral on the 25th of June. Poland is paying over 275 million zloty for our astronauts' participation. Representatives of the Polish Space Agency are convinced that this investment will pay for itself and even more. This could be a breakthrough in oncology, meteorology, namely how we study the Earth's atmosphere from space, pharmacology, and biotechnology. The mission, which is being followed by many people around the world, is also an excellent opportunity to promote, for example, Polish cuisine.
Let me tell you about pierogi. Pierogi is a very, very, very Polish dish. So we eat them for Christmas. We eat them, it is also a comfort food. It is very, very homey.
The Axiom 4 mission was originally supposed to last 2 weeks, but it is already known that the return date will be postponed. The station is currently experiencing a so-called polar day, which means that the station is constantly illuminated by the sun, and this also causes certain thermal challenges, and we need to investigate whether this has a negative impact on the Dragon spacecraft. The landing operation itself is one of the most dangerous elements of the entire mission.
Kapsuła musi wejść pod odpowiednim kątem.
The capsule must enter the Earth's atmosphere at the right angle. If it enters at the wrong angle, at too high an angle, it may overheat and burn. If it enters at too low an angle, it may bounce off the denser layers of the atmosphere and glide far into space. If everything goes according to plan, the capsule will land in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, where it will be recovered by the U.S. Navy. Tomorrow, Axiom is expected to announce details of the return of the 4 astronauts.